Good morning and welcome to the Daily Huddle on another Money Monday. We're excited to be here with you guys today and to see all your shining faces. It's a great day in the mountains of North Georgia where we're coming to you from today. We're going to talk about planning today. Our question of the day is it important to plan ahead? And in a lot of cases, we're talking about money, but in this case, we're going to talk about a lot of different aspects when it's important to plan ahead. But before we get started, in the spirit of planning, I asked my dad what he was planning to do today. And he said he was going to the eye doctor to get his glasses and then he would see.
Oh, you're teasing.
I love it. That was awesome.
Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Happy Monday and welcome to our daily huddle today. We're going to talk to you like Zach said. I'm Kimberly, this is Zach, and we're going to talk to you this morning about planning and is it important? But before we do that, we're going to talk about you guys and where you are and how your world is. So, Andrea, what time is it and what are you grateful for?
The time is now, and I'm grateful for the weather this morning.
Awesome. Me too. I see some sunshine out of my window, so it makes me happy. Cece, where are you and who will you hug today? I saw you say good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm right here, right now. And I guess I'm going to hug myself today.
I think it's important to hug yourself for sure. And finally, Gio, how are you?
Good morning. Today I am the way I say I am, I suppose. And today I say I am fast.
That was the joke of the day.
It took you a minute to be fast, Gio.
Take me a minute.
There was an animated movie called Zootopia. You might have seen it before, but there was the DMV was a sloth. The person behind the DMV counter was a sloth, and it took him forever to ask questions. And it was very, very good for the DMV. That's what you reminded me of there. I am fast. Well, good morning. I'm our expert guest today because I am not at all an expert in planning ahead. I am notorious for starting projects and not being prepared to finish them. I'm also a major procrastinator. And so I thought it would be good to share a little story before we get started about that on an experience I had that was eye-opening. So some of you may know that Kimberly and I, our education was in education. We were both went to college to be school teachers, and we did that for a brief period of time before we got into our own world of finance. And I've always been fairly good at flying by the seat of my pants and just kind of making things work. And so I thought I was doing a great job in my student teaching experience, and the kids loved me, and I had a great rapport with them. And after the first week, my student teaching supervisor pulled me to the side and she said, "Okay, I'm done with this." She said, "You are not going to pass if you don't have a lesson plan and stick to it." She said, "The reason the kids love you is because they can talk about whatever they want to talk about, and you'll just have conversations with them, and they stay off topic the entire time. And we have certain things we have to cover." So she said, "I'm going to introduce you to the 5 Ps. Is anyone aware of what the 5 Ps are?" It was eye-opening for me. prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. and she said, so learn it and live it, because you have to have plans. You have to plan ahead for your class. You have to know where you're going when you get started, and you have to work your way in that direction. And so that was my first experience of really realizing that flying by the seat of my pants was not going to be something that I could do through life. I know that Sorrel loves sometimes when we're sending our questions of the day and how prepared we are for those on a weekly basis. But that story helps us, or helps me, to realize when I feel somewhat chaotic in my life, or what's going on, or I feel overwhelmed with all the things that I've got going on, I just have to stop and make a plan and check things off as we go. So that's really the 6 P's. Could be, yeah. I wasn't a math teacher. I was social studies.
Oh, yeah, it was 6.
It was the 6. Maybe I left the one out that was that was slightly offensive some of the times. That's why I was going with 5. But yeah. So thinking about that in that vein, today I want to talk about planning for events in life, being prepared for those, whether it be financial events or otherwise. And I know Kimberly and I both had a lot of stories about clients that we've sat down with and things that we've done. And the one that kind of got me on this topic, or got me thinking about this a lot, was one we met with yesterday. And it's one of those things that all of us would love to have an inheritance at some point in time, right? We don't want anybody that we love to pass away and leave things. We'd rather have an uncle we've never met that just all of a sudden leaves us a few $1 million. But this client we met with yesterday, on a fixed income, retired, and they had an inheritance. They had a sizable inheritance in what they would have thought, and thought everything was great, everything was going well. But when they inherited this money, they also inherited properties and expenses and things like that. And he's been going along just one foot in front of the other, paying the bills, doing those kind of things, and kind of felt like everything was great. And we sat down yesterday to help him with a plan of investment of a lump sum of money. And in the way that we do that, we started at the very beginning, and we talked about his income, and we talked about his expenses, and we talked about all those kind of things. And he realized that he had also inherited, based on his income and his outflow, a shortfall in monthly expenses of about $5,800, right? Somewhere in that neighborhood. So he was literally spending through the asset that he had just inherited in order to keep that asset up as well. And he was not going to be able to do nearly what he wanted to do at the end of the day. So from a planning perspective and a not procrastinating perspective, I think it's always good to stop and figure out where you are, where your baseline is, and go from there. What are some other ones that you've had from that perspective, as far as a plan that really they felt good, or they felt like they had everything going in the right direction, but then when you put the plan together, they realized how much they really just needed to have that foundation?
Well, I think it's, honestly, I think it's most people that we meet with, right? Like, we meet with clients all the time, and we always start at the beginning and work to the end. So even if somebody said, Kimberly, I want to invest $25 a month, $2,000 a month, whatever, I'm still going to start at the beginning and go to the end to make sure that everything is correct and where it should be. And a lot of times when we meet with people, whether it's individuals or families or whatever, they're used to a certain level of income, right? So if someone makes $100,000 a year, and we're sitting down with them and we look at their 401k, and they're in their 50s, and they have 100,000 in their 401k, or let's be nice and say they have 200, which nobody does, which is surprising, I know. But let's say they have 200,000 in their 401k. How many years of their current working life and expenses and lifestyle can they live when they retire? 2 or less. But people don't think about it that way. They just think miraculously bills are going to be cheaper. They're going to be able to save more money. They're not going to be going to work, so they don't have the gas and the expenses and things like that. But I think for me, I think that's probably one of the biggest holes in anybody's planning ahead, is really preparing for retirement. It's much more fun to plan for spring break or my summer beach trip than it is to set aside really what I need to set aside monthly so I can retire the way I want to retire. We also ask people all the time, do you spend more money during the week or on the weekend? and you guys can answer if you want to, but do you spend more money on during the week or on the weekend? It's probably on the weekend, right? For most people, it's on the weekend because your time isn't taken up with work and all your responsibilities. You're looking for something to do and going to a concert or going to dinner or going to, an event or doing something like that. And so when that happens, you spend more money. Well, in retirement, do you have more weekdays or weekends? Really, every day's a weekend, right? So we have to prepare for not only just more entertainment expenses and things like that, right? But we also have to prepare for increase in healthcare and paying our bills forever and how long we're going to live and all that fun stuff that we talk about. But I think for me, it's more a general conversation than just a personal one. I'm sure there are a million personal ones, but I think that's what hits me between the eyes the most.
Yeah, and from that, and I would love to hear anybody else's stories too, when we get to that point here in just a minute, of times when planning ahead has either a lack of that has been a trouble that you've learned from, or doing it felt rewarding. But I think the biggest thing in most people's daily life that they need to have, other than a financial plan, or actually even before we start with that, are goals. Where do I want to go? Where do I want to get? So that every day I get up, and we talk to our people about writing down, having clear and concise written goals that you read every day, in the morning and in the evening, to keep you on that track instead of wandering around. And so we've had several times and several examples in our career where having those written goals, actually, it's not magic. It just keeps you focused. A lot of people say, well, I'm not going to write down my goals and read them every day. It's not like they're going to happen just because I write them down and read them. You're right. It's not going to happen because you write them down and read them. It's going to happen because you stay focused and you stay on track. And I think that's where the lesson plans came in with my teaching experience. And that was that always helped me, and it still does help me to know where I'm headed on a daily basis, or where I'm headed monthly, weekly, this year. What do I want to get done from that perspective?
So most of you guys have probably heard of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, right? And that's one of a master books that most of us, any entrepreneurs and people out there, that's one of the top 5, I would think, for most people's mental paradigm shift. And basically, he was assigned to all of these wealthy people to figure out how they became wealthy. And so he spent 10 years with
something like that, yeah.
with a lot of wealthy people back in those days, learning and watching and seeing and doing their everyday daily activities. And through that, he came out and created this book, Think and Grow Rich, of the key points that we all needed to understand about becoming successful and reaching our goals and our dreams and doing more than we ever thought possible. And that was writing your goals, right? And so one of the things that Napoleon Hill says is that if you write down your goals, they need to be clear and specific. They need to say exactly what you want to happen, not any questionable words, like be exact about what you want to happen and when you want that to happen, and read those every morning and every night, because I'm a firm believer that if you don't brainwash yourself, somebody else is going to. So it's important to continue to remind yourself every morning, every afternoon, when life is hitting you every different way. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And I think you guys see that. I'm sure you guys have done vision boards. I'm sure you've done things like that where you have your goals in front of you, where you put them on paper. And sometimes when you do those vision boards, even if you don't actually like look at it every single day, honestly, I've found in the past that just the act of taking that day and cutting them out of the magazines and pasting it on there and talking about it and looking at it, kind of magical how many pieces come true. So I think if we want our lives to be what we want our lives to be, and we want our passing from a financial perspective for our families to be what we want that to be, then we have to plan, even if it's not in our comfort zone, even if it isn't our perfect daily activity is to sit down and plan. It does make things go smoother, and people would much prefer to understand what your goals and wishes are than to try to make it up or try to figure it out at the end of the day.
Yeah, another hack that's been that I found fascinating is when you sit down. Most of us have smartphones, right? We have our email in front of us. We have all the connectivity in front of us all the time. And one of the best things that I was ever told, I'm not very good at it, it is to not be so immediately available. This person that I was talking to, it actually came from a book that they told me to read. But it was like the 4-hour work week or whatever, where he said, I'm gonna set times daily. I'm going to have an autoresponder on my email. I'm going to have a voicemail answer on my phone that says I'll return phone calls between this time and this time. If it's an emergency, then text me or whatever else. But and then emails, an autoresponder that said you can expect to hear back from me between this time and this time a day. And then in their day, they had that email moment, right? I know a lot of our lives can't work that way. We have to be a little more responsive than that. And I get that if we're dealing with emergencies or we're dealing with things that are going on at that moment. But being intentional about your time. I know we laugh because we'll sit down in our office at home and our desks are right next to each other. And we'll, as soon as one of us hits the seat, we're stuck because we get into the emails and the minutia of everything when we were just going to sit down and send one message or sit down and check on one thing. So having that plan, that daily action plan, to go along with your weekly plan and your monthly plan and your financial plan, the more intentional we are about where we're headed and how we're going to get there, the better off I think that we'll be. And I know we have some great folks in our host panel and also from other days that are more expert in these things than I am. So if anybody wants to share something that's helped them or that they had a learning experience from that'd be great. I think as we move through to try to be productive and stay positive, we have Money Monday, and then we have other topics throughout the week that we cover, and the Daily Huddle is laid out very well with those plans. But I'm fascinated the more I learn about our co-hosts or our other hosts and what they do. So if anybody wants to chime in or Kimberly wants to say anything about her goal setting and those kind of things, that'd be great.
I think, we haven't had a lot of question and answer time on our last several times. So I would love to hear from some of you guys as far as just stories of planning ahead and how it changed things or how that's changed your lives, whether it's work life or daily life or kids life or financial life. But anybody have anything they want to share? Hey, Cece.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I think the planning process began for me growing up. My father, who's a military guy, he always told me, write everything down. And so at an early age, I started writing everything down. And then at some point, I got away from it and I started up again because the word says, write the vision and make it plain. So I started writing plans that I didn't even know that were going to manifest. Like this year, I plan on going on a 274-day cruise around the world. It departs in December. So I wrote it on my vision board and I've been making actions to fund it. Not me personally, but have sponsors fund it. And I can already see as we progress through each day that something is manifesting, as well as I'm doing better with taking good care of myself, like eating, like exercising. Every day I write these things down, as well as what you guys shared about the emails. I only do an email reading like maybe 15 minutes out of the day. I do take off one day a week where before I wasn't taking any days off. So I decide and I'm choosing to do better things and writing it down. So thank you so much for letting me share.
No, I appreciate it very much. I love that story. And I love the fact that you're writing it down, but you're writing it down every single day because it reminds you, right? Exactly the same thing as reading it every day. One of the lessons or tips or tricks, sometimes we'll do like 30-day challenges and things like that with our team. And a lot of that centers around their written statement. Who do you want to be when you grow up? It's your life. What do you want it to look like? And then we talk about them reading that statement every morning and every afternoon as if it's already happened, right? Already put that out there, manifest that, put that in the universe. But as you all know, our lives get very, very, very busy. And sometimes we forget. But Zach just said, and we all know, we all have this smartphone, this magical little piece of metal and glass that we hold in our hands most of the time during the day, right? And a good thing about that smartphone is that you can set alarms and you can set reminders.
Calendars.
But on your alarms and your reminders, you can simply have an alarm. And we've done this in the past where if I'm going to read my goals every morning at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., then my alarm will go off at 7 a.m. and it can either say read your goals or it can be a written statement. So before you go to delete that alarm, you're like, oh, and
It's
you
time.
literally read your written statement from your phone because it's telling you to, and you don't forget. So those are just some ways to be more intentional, right? More intentional, and because we all start out anything really great and really focused and really meaning to win that 30-day challenge or whatever. But at the farther we get from day one, the harder it is to stay focused. So that's a little tip to keep you focused on reading those goals every morning and every afternoon. Who else has a story they want to share?
Well,
Such a shy group.
I have a favorite chapter in another book. Some people know this guy. Some people love him, some people hate him, but he had a chapter in one of his first books, and I was listening to him actually talk about this on a podcast, and he was talking about being prepared, so that you always are a step ahead of what might come ahead in your life. And he was talking about people that get really angry with the power company when the power goes out, and I thought this really stuck out to me. And he used some colorful language, but he basically just said, you shouldn't be upset that you're sitting in your house and it's dark. You should be upset that you didn't buy a generator and have it prepared for those types of events, because all of us know the power goes out periodically. So not just sit there and, kick rocks and be mad because you're in a situation that you were unprepared for. Think ahead and be prepared for those situations. So that was another moment where I was like, okay, that's great. I like the way he thinks about that. So lots of great stories. I'm sure some of us may not want to share all of those as far as things that were difficult for us for not planning ahead. But Gio, you've got your hand up now. Go ahead.
Yes, what a great conversation. I think that I have great stories on, I guess, on both ends. On the great stories for reflection on the times that I did not plan, and great stories of the times that I did plan. And it occurs to me as I'm listening to this conversation that most of my planning is fear-based. Like this is what I'm discovering right now, right? I don't know what I'm going to say next. I'm really seeing this for the first time. Most of my planning is fear-based. That everything I'm planning, whether it's work or home, is on what if this happens. And so so what I'm discovering here is that for me, there is some upgrading to do to become kind of adult-like about planning, rather than looking at life in the context of where else can I avoid a mess or something negative. I can try to see it, or where else can I create a fun future for me. And so it's kind of a different way of looking at things that I'm seeing right now. Really, I haven't seen it before, because most of my planning in my life is really when I can see the abyss. Like, oh man, if I don't do that,
Right.
The trash is gonna hit the fan, since we're not using colorful language today.
Right.
But I think there's a place for me to grow where planning can be adult rather than fear-based. So I'm seeing that today.
Wow. That's, and ultimately, I think that that's one of the things that got us on this topic today is Kimberly and I talking. Our life's been chaotic. It was our daughter's spring break last week. And so we were out of town. We came back into town and we came directly to Atlanta because we had an event, a training and event for our people here. And now we're up here. Our daughter had to come to her grandparents' house, and we're here to pick her up and take her back to Charleston today. So we've been on a whirlwind, and I think that not having the intentional schedule that we're used to having put us behind a little bit in our planning and in our preparation. So this is a crowdsourcing training moment for me too, because I want to hear what other people do to keep the calm in the chaos, right? So, Gio.
Yeah, and I had another maybe a question to put out there for you guys. So there is this aspect of planning that absent of it, you know, it will cause a royal mess in my future, a royal mess, right? Like not having life insurance. That's a royal mess for my family if I don't have it. Like it's no joke what happens.
Mhm.
And then there is this aspect of allowing life to show up, you know, absent of the planning, you know, like allowing oneself to enjoy life as it is,
Yep.
the way it shows up. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that me personally, the life insurance conversation is a big part of what we talk about on a regular basis. But I think having that piece taken care of will give people, it does me anyway, the ability to not worry so much and to actually live life as it comes. Being prepared, I think a lot of times I remember all the way back to walking into the classroom when I had prepared, I felt much less stress about life coming at me because I was prepared. And so I think that the two kind of go together, right? Be prepared from a generator or a life insurance perspective because you know the inevitable will happen and that we're all going to pass away at some point in time. The question is, are we prepared and is our family prepared for that event? Emotionally, no, not usually. That's not something you can buy insurance, emotional insurance for, but you can certainly take the weight of the financial burden off of that exact same moment, right? And that's very well said. I'm a big fan of spontaneity and living life and having a good time. But and being
Sometimes it's stressful.
it is. Got to have both. The track to run on, kind of see where it's going, but not necessarily blinders at the
I
same
think
time.
it's important, you know, and I think we've talked about this before, maybe we haven't, but we start every single one of our conversations with our clients, especially if they're new to us or it's been, you know, 6 months or a year or whatever. And the very first question that I ask anyone every single time is, if I could wave a magic wand and tomorrow is exactly like you want it to look like, what is that? Because I don't want them to start from this fear mentality of planning. I want them to start from this dream mentality of planning. I want to know. I want you to paint me your picture, right? Like I want you to tell me what, because you said this a few weeks ago, Gio, that you want a house in the mountains and you want a house on the beach. And, you know, I want you to tell me where those houses are and what they look like and, you know, what it smells like and what it feels like. And I want you to own that experience before we start planning for the, okay, let's make sure you have life insurance in case. And, you know, all of those foundational conversations, but I really want you to buy in to your big dreams and goals. So then we can almost, you know, take care of where we are right now and then make that dream plan to get there. So I think it's interesting seeing planning from both of those mindsets because I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't necessarily thought about planning for the negative. I just like, this is what I want to do. Let's go here. And then, you know, trying to figure out how to make that happen. But I think it was a good conversation today. So
Gio?
Yeah, this is phenomenal. You know what? You guys are reminding me of an aspect of my life. When I was in college, where there was absolutely no discretionary income, most months were in red. And so I've always had to look for more, find a way to make more money so that I wouldn't be too much behind. But I had this like to the dot Excel sheet of all my fixed cost of living. I mean, I knew exactly how much gas I have to put Otherwise, it will be a royal mess. There was nothing discretionary. And so I would know about 30 days ahead which day I will be ready based on, and so now that I'm seeing and remembering, which I don't do anymore. I have discretionary income, so whatever.
Right.
But I remember those days having some peace of mind because I didn't have to I knew where my breaks were. Now, when I see my credit card statement, I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? Why did I do this to myself? So there is an aspect of planning that I see that creates peace of mind. And I'm seeing it right now. Yeah.
Well, awesome. I think that's a great example. We
Yeah.
were always told, you can tell really quickly the river story.
Oh,
You know what I'm
yeah.
talking about?
So my dad is a whitewater boater, and I grew up, on the water, and he's very good at it. And he always talked about you don't want to look where you don't want to go. You want to look where you want to go. So if you stare at the rock, it doesn't matter how you paddle, you will hit the rock.
Every time.
But
trust me.
if you stare at the water flow to the right of the rock and you aim in that direction, then that's where you're going to go. There's a lot of skill that goes into it, but mentally knowing where you want to go and focusing on that and not what you don't want to happen.
It's important to know a rock is there.
Sure.
Just don't look at
Just
it.
don't focus on it. So we find that what we focus on is what we get more of. So guys, thank you very much for your time this morning. I love the fact that being prepared for the daily huddle makes me think about what I need to work on as well. And for all the input, just good to see everybody. Before we sign off, let's remind ourselves how to go off into our day. We want to plan, right? But we also want to love. Number one, we want to laugh out loud, have a good time, have that spontaneity, stress less, like Rashida says all the time. Eat mostly plant-based, take care of your body, give, sleep, move, and then check yourself before you wreck yourself. Take a pause. That's the best advice I've ever been given. Don't respond immediately. Take a pause. So, all right, guys, go out into this beautiful day and have a good one. And we'll see you same time, same place tomorrow.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day now.
Thank
Bye.
you, Zach. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, family.
You're welcome, Stan.